Hi, Chloe.
Hello, Angela. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Another day.
Oh,
How many
yes.
sessions is this now?
This is our seventh one. Isn't that lovely?
Seventh. God. And
Yeah.
we haven't actually met in person either, have
I
we?
know it's ridiculous.
I feel
I
like
might
I'm
not like you if I meet you.
I might not
Oh,
like you either.
I'm
No,
sure I will. Oh, it's crazy, isn't it? But it's a good time to keep yourself busy, isn't it? At the moment, not
completely.
kind of feeling like in the end of the tunnel too much at the moment, but vaccines are happening to people around me, so that's a good thing, and I hope they are for your family as well.
Yeah. Are you well as well?
Yeah, well, good, thank you.
Yeah.
So I've started my course properly now. And of course, workloads has increased, but that's fine because, like we've talked about before, you do find a way of fitting it into your life, especially if it's of interest. So
So it's again,
yeah,
what's the course? It's Parsons.
it's Parsons New School, and it's called Healthy Materials and Sustainable Building, and it's a 12-week. So you kind of do modules. There's 4 modules, and you do them in strict order. And at the moment, it's all about chemicals of concern. The effects of chemicals on the human body. It's kind of it's good. It's good scientific stuff to learn about. It's worrying, but
The trouble is, do you watch the David Attenborough Perfect Planet? Oh, I just come away with such a feeling of dread, and I think, why don't people know this?
I
But
know.
it's not their fault. It's for us, as people in design and things like that, to make the difference.
I
So
don't think people connect the two things. The high consumption of materials that we are responsible for, and specifying, and the effect on oceans and land, and it's the ozone, and it's just it's
in a lecture I've just had, the best sort of the best environmental building that you can build isn't a new build, it's just a retrofit. And the same is for interiors. If you can reuse, repurpose, re-love something, that is going to be the best way to save our environment. And plants, compost, all of those things that are important to the planet.
and we are supposed to be creative, aren't we? So let's have these challenges of reusing and being creative, and not looking at new and being unimaginative. Sometimes it's good to sort of push your boundaries, and I think it's a challenge for designers, and I think they should take it up.
So what's the one takeaway that you've got so far from it? What's the biggest thing that
So kind of, well, part of me knows that a lot of this is the studies are American, and they don't have quite the same protection that we have had from the EU directives. And we're quite fortunate in our EU directives for chemical use. America is, there's sort of chemicals used in children's clothing and things. There's a much higher content than we are allowed to have here. So
wasn't it America, China, and Indian the only ones who didn't participate in the Paris Treaty?
Yeah, but fortunately, they've gone back and they're back in now, aren't they? So things are looking brighter in that respect. But yeah, it's worrying. The thing that I've learned is the biochemical industry is a cheap and convenient way of doing things. Often all those byproducts of the petrochemical industry are used conveniently for things that we as designers will use, like in paint and things like that. And that's kind of doesn't make it right. Just because it's convenient and cheap doesn't make it healthy.
And it's like palm oil destroying all the rainforests. That's how they make their money. Have you watched the program with Woody Harrelson?
I've heard
Kiss
about
the
it.
Ground.
Oh yes, that one. Yes, yeah, I have. It's excellent.
So it's all about soil, and we're 60 years away from having no topsoil on the planet. That's 6
Yeah,
harvests. That's like,
it's nothing.
so the whole place is turning into a desert. You know,
Yeah,
desert is phenomenal.
desertification.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I was just reading about that, about, just the Argentinian sheep industry. They overpacked their land with sheep for, wool and meat, but that they quickly found that they hit the desertification, wall, and they haven't been able to farm in the same scale. If you don't look after the soil, it's only going to last so long. It's heartbreaking.
In America, because this is where the program was based, is
Yeah,
the government subsidised farmers for crop and things like that, in us using certain chemicals and bits and pieces. So they don't try anything else because they're guaranteed an income. So you can understand
yeah,
why people do it that way, is because
absolutely.
they're too scared to take the step away from the norm. So
It's
yeah,
so sad, isn't it? And this people, planet, profit, it should be the 3 Ps with people and planet in there as well, not just profit. Triple
yeah.
bottom line
My
is,
partner was saying he reckons we as humans are the coronavirus. We're the virus, and
yeah,
we're the ones doing all this. So
if we'd have left the animals alone, we might not be in this
well,
mess.
that's what an ecosystem does. So I'm
Yeah.
learning ecosystems and biodiversity at the moment. And did you know that the coral reef, when that's dead, that affects every single animal species all the way through? But how a coral stops being bleached is, well, what gives it its lovely colour is some algae gets inside it and lights it up, because it works on photosynthesis, which gives it the colour.
Oh,
So that's why they're now using algae for a lot of solar panels and things like that, because
oh wow.
nature gives it its light anyway, and that's how it works. So there's lots of really clever products out there as well, if you can start to go back to nature and look at it.
Yeah, yeah.
Where we are in Preston, in Brighton, Preston Park, but they've got 2 twins called the Preston twins, and they're 450-year-old elm trees. Now, what an amazing legacy! I didn't even know about them, and I'm from
Where are they? In
that's
Preston Park?
just by Preston Manor, and they're called the Preston twins.
I think I've heard of them.
They're the oldest and largest elm trees in the whole of Europe and possibly the world. Um, Again, so things like that are so important to keep. Now, what keeps elm trees? We've got the biggest national collection of elm trees in Brighton and Hove, is because of our unique environment of being between 2 valleys and the salt air. And
Oh,
trees are one of the very few trees that can handle such salt air to it, and the alkaline chalk ground. So yeah, anyway, we're deviating.
oh, that's interesting. I live near Elm Grove, and unfortunately, there aren't any elms there anymore. Apparently, Dutch elm disease got them. So, but
The ones in the level, because they're
yeah, going up Elm Grove. Obviously, that was named after elms, but yeah, apparently
oh,
they're not elms anymore.
apparently Brighton have a good policy for replanting though and spotting it
Oh,
early
good.
now. So we should be.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah.
so what are we talking about? We're going to talk about.
Well, yeah. Well, last week when we were talking, you mentioned a few times just things that were about what I call onboarding a client. The process of you've got a client who wants to work with you, and the process of bringing them in and defining the brief with them. And I just thought, oh, we could talk about that quite a long time. So I thought let's have a separate episode.
So somebody hears about you and phones up and
Yeah.
says, "Hi, Chloe. We've heard all about you looking to use you. What's your process? How do we
So
go
I've
working
got
with
a few ways. So first of all, sometimes I just, in the morning there'll be an email there, and somebody's booked in a discovery call, filled out a questionnaire that goes with the booking, and so I kind of just it's lovely. It's quite, automated. A lot of people like sort of looking at things like that at night, and I find that those often happen. And there's been a few of those recently, actually. But so they can happen, or I get the phone call and we'll have a sort of dedicated time, a proper chat about their project. And I'm really happy to kind of spend time on that front end with clients, to make sure that they're happy. Because there's a lot about the relationship, isn't there? You've got to feel like this person is going to, for them to let you into their project, whether it's a home or a commercial.
Yeah, more so home, and any design's about psychology, and knowing who the end user is, isn't it? It's what are we trying to achieve here? Are we biophilic design? I will go into a project and I will say, okay, what's the aim? Is it going to be wayfinding? Am I going to find my place from place to place? Is it being more stimulated and cognitively aware? Is it going to be that I want to be more relaxed and calm? And then I use that intent to write a whole list and questionnaire to go on to that.
Because so you've so first of all, even if they haven't come to you for that, I bet they love hearing all of that. Even if people don't know that you're offering biophilic design and you have this strategy for how you work, I bet they love that.
Yeah, because it's just explaining why I've come to the design decisions based on what we've the questions I've asked and things like that. And yeah, I always look to nature as my inspiration. So how do you get your inspiration? Where do you look to?
So I mean, there's all the kind of absorbing of being in nature, visiting places, going to galleries, going to museums. I love all of those things. I don't mind, I am not precious about, I've subscribed to Elle Decoration since I was 19. And, I love looking at magazines, and I don't mind looking at Pinterest. And, I find Pinterest, I never ever want to copy anything, but I find things like Pinterest, it's very accessible for clients to communicate to me with. So I've got a few different questionnaires, because I'm sure, like you, there isn't a sort of standard formula for how you onboard a client. You have to kind of tweak it to each client, because every project is different. Every client needs different things. But one of the things I do is sort of show them, it's quite general, but it's like to kind of get their style brief, kind of, what they feel about airy spaces, dark spaces, metal finishes, if they like to collect things, do they like an eclectic look? And I kind of sort of talk about things like that. And it's every little thing I'm asking does glean a little bit more of a brief and give me a clearer idea. So and so kind of those are looking at Pinterest type photos of typical,
Is your business on Pinterest? Do you do a lot on Pinterest?
Yeah, I put things on Pinterest.
And what about house and things like that as well?
I'm on house. I'm not prepared to spend all that money on it. I think it's a lot of money, a big commitment. I haven't really felt, I mean, first of all, it's all about residential, and I'm both. I'm happy to work for anyone and help them with a sustainable interior. It can be a business or a home. So it's not really a good fit for me, but I'm there on it. How about you? You?
No, I've never been on house, not really for me. Pinterest, I've got an account, but do I ever really go on there? No. I kind of, I'm lucky now because I'm at Brighton Uni. I get the whole university library. So now I have lots of really good journals and books, and I've also got a reading list that I can't get through because I've got other reading lists.
Oh, don't talk to me about books. I've got so many to read. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but at the moment we're doing a group task at uni, and so they've got us even before so that we can write our proposal and the brief. We've all done different elements of it. We've looked at the planning down at the Marine Parade, because that's where it is.
Okay.
Madeira Terrace.
Okay.
we're looking at the history of Brighton, we're looking at the biodiversity, the ecosystems, the linkage, the way you get around Brighton, and then we put all of that together and then we write a brief from there. So I suppose that's really what I do with my clients anyway. So the 2 blocks of flats I'm working on, I'm doing all of the common ways, the wayfinding and things like that. I'll start on lots of information that I find relevant. So these blocks of flats are at Preston Park, and the Dutch elm tree is called the Preston Twins, might influence me and trigger off something, either colours or shape or texture, and it gives them a sense of place.
Oh, it's lovely.
So something by researching the area is usually what gives me that little starting point to then pinpoint it. So I never go on Pinterest and things. I'm kind of just looking and looking at the place. So I did some houses for a developer in Shoreham Beach, well, North Shoreham, but it was right on the estuary. There was the beach and there was the South Downs National Park. So all of the, we used lots of pebble, chalk colours. I'm doing a home office in Woodmancote. We're using clay plaster and rammed clay earth walls because they're on their land, got lots of clay. So that's where I'll get my inspiration from.
Yeah, it's you don't want to graft a place onto somewhere that has no relation to its surroundings. Absolutely. There's so much to it, really, isn't there? You kind of just have to have all your tentacles out and kind of take everything in and absorb it for a project.
Yeah, I use the questionnaire when I'm on an initial meeting to discuss expectations of me, really, and what they're seeking my job to be, and clarify my position in helping them.
That's good.
I tend to use it that way. I kind of listen and look around how they live their lives, how they like cooking, if it's a house, you know, how many kids have they got, haven't they got kids? And then, so I've already made those kind of notes to myself. And then I use the questionnaire to say, okay, am I giving you everything? And then we'll pair it back to a budget, or am I working to a strict budget and that is it? So
how do you get on with getting budgets from clients? It's a whole skill.
You never get one. That's why it's always best, and I always advise them to have everything, and then there's ways that you can either drop things out or you can find alternatives. So you say, okay, let's have you already, I love looking around people's houses. There's always one photograph or one picture or one thing from their travels that will generally, for me, be my starting point of the design. So my house, I would be awful to design for, but I've got a vintage Missoni home. Missoni's been going since the 1950s. It's the zigzaggy knitwear predominantly. I've got a hand embroidered Missoni table runner.
Oh, how lovely.
And I love that. And I've got a beautiful sketch drawing that I got from my granddad, from a artist called Peter Perry, who's got to look his work up. It's phenomenal. And they're the 2 things I would start with if I was going to be designing for me. And then nature.
Lovely.
Yes.
It is important. It's like, it just reminds me, because I'm writing this guide for the BIID, this sustainable, you know, the group of us are writing it, but one of the things, you know, is this kind of having an old piece in a room, kind of, you know, having something to anchor everything that you're doing. It's like the Greek restaurant that I worked on a year or so ago. I wanted to put some imagery in there, and the clients are sort of saying, well, you know, what sort of, and I'm like, can you go, next time you visit your family in Greece, can you go through the photo albums and get me lovely black and white photography of your family? And they were like, okay. And they went to talk to their grandmothers and came back with the most amazing photos. And of course, I'm not going to do them this big because I like to do things bold. So we've got whole walls of, you know, family in.
And
so
it gives a place, doesn't it?
it's a talking point. It's kind of an authentic thing as well. It's lovely. I think it's so important.
Yeah, I did that for, I designed Indian Summer in Brighton.
Oh, that's nice.
And I put lots of big digital photographs up of markets and things like that as well. So yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Quite a clever little thing to do for commercial ones. Yeah, it gives people a story. Everyone wants a narrative, and you've got to start. And as a designer, you have to tell the story and deliver. You know, the expectations are, you know, I'm employed because they can't do it themselves. Yes, they can go and buy some lovely cushions and colours and things like that, but there's actually a lot involved in getting it right and not wasting money and getting the right paint colour, making sure that I mean, how I started this project in the countryside is they've got a deciduous tree in the south. So I orientated the building so that the tree covered the for the solar gain onto the tree, and they've got deer in their garden, so I put a rain chain to feed the deer. And yeah, so nice. Again, things like that. Anyway,
we don't want to do a cookie cutter thing. I mean, it's not enjoyable to work on things in that way, and you know, it's not the right thing by the client either. You kind of it's much more enjoyable. And the other thing that I get for early on my sort of questionnaire, so my questionnaire, I don't ask them the questions when I'm with them, I send it ahead, and then I might kind of read it over with them, you know. But I just want, I want them to spend time on it. It's a form that lets you kind of save and go away and come back, and you haven't lost everything. So I kind of, you know, it gives them time to have a think and discuss things. It gets those discussions happening between partners in a business or you know, clients who are partners. It kind of gets those things out there. And one of the questions I ask is, who's a decision maker? And often, you know, it's one or the other of a partner, but that's quite a helpful question to get up front as well, because it's kind of, even if one sort of says, okay, well, you'll give the ultimate yeses and nos, because that, I mean, when you've got multiple decision makers on a project, wow, it's hard.
I don't really go for the decision makers. I kind of I go for who's the cook, who's the one, what's the most important room in the house for you, things like that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. I think when it comes to businesses, it's quite helpful because it's a little less emotional then, isn't it?
Yes, because you shouldn't be doing house design. You should be doing sorry, turning off this.
All right.
You should be doing something for their brand and for their core business and their core values and things like that. So to do a house design in a commercial space is always wrong. It's not your lounge. It's done to be durable. It's done to be part of their branding, part of their
there's a whole marketing piece to go with that, you know, who you're aiming at, who do you want here. So yeah, it's so useful. So my form asks them all of those things. If it's the business, have you got brand guidelines to share with me? You know, all of those things, because you want to really know it inside and out, don't you? And immerse yourself in that business.
Yeah.
But for all my clients, on my form is this sort of tick box exercise, which is about, I guess, values really. It's kind of going through all of the different elements and just finding out what they feel strongly about. I think I might have mentioned it before, but you know, I think I say something like, which of these things would you like me to include in your project, even if it added some budget to the project? And then I get into all the healthy building stuff, the vegan things. Do you want me to avoid animal product, you know, and just to kind of have that confirmation from a client that they are tuned into those same values or not, you know, it kind of gives me a clear directive. Sorry?
They haven't got the same values as you. Would you work for them? Or
it hasn't actually really happened. No, I mean, but I will say in the last year, I've been working on a burger restaurant,
Right,
but they're, and you know, it was the beginning of lockdown, and I'm thinking, oh God, everything's gone quiet, everything's, you know, and they needed all the front end design work doing, and you know, I said yes because they're the most lovely people to work for, and he's been really receptive about using pre-love stuff. He's they kind of have watched all the David Attenborough stuff and started saying, oh, we really need to think. I mean, they're already offering 3 vegan burger options and vegetarian options on top, but they're kind of like, I'm going through this little process with them of kind of like, they're realizing their place in this, and they're kind of wanting to offer better for their clients. It's quite, yeah, it wasn't what I was expecting, but so I kind of have often thought, actually, in that respect, they weren't matching my values, but they are a lovely client to work for, and this openness about this discussion. So yeah, it's taught me a lesson, actually.
I think things like that are fine. I think it's whether what they stand for and things like that. So when I early on in my career, I would kind of just go wherever the money was. Now that side of it doesn't interest me. It's what's the project, and you know, what are we trying to achieve here, and do we kind of align? Otherwise, I think perhaps for them and for myself, there's better people that they could, more suited people to them.
Yeah,
Um, so 20 years on, I say no to a lot more people than I say yes to, which is how I like it. So,
I know. I've been, yeah, I've kind of, I don't know if it's my nature or our profession, but I can find myself being a people pleaser. You know, once I hear that there's a pain point for somebody, like, oh, this is so hard, you know, I want to help them, you know, I want to dash in and help. And I have got better at kind of like, no, if you do that, you'll spread yourself too thin and it's not fair to your other clients, or it, you know, it might not really match up to my values or kind of where I want to be. And yeah, there's a lot of other designers. Let's keep everything going around so everyone else can keep going as well, you know. It's kind of spread it about a bit too.
yeah, which is good. So we're going to finish now. So
Yeah, cool.
takeaways that you want to add to anyone, or do you think?
Not particularly. I mean, we touched on this in the last conversation about, you know, when you're looking for sort of work placements as a student with people and making sure you match up to their values. And if, you know, we are in people's lives for quite a significant amount of time. So I think it goes for that kind of advice can apply to how a client can find you and how you can work with a client as well. So kind of.
Absolutely. In the next session, what do you want to chat about? Maybe we'll elaborate on some more eco stuff, because that's my favourite subject.
Yeah. I mean, that's always going to be the little baseline for this conversation, isn't it?
My compost, as
Oh
in
yeah,
not go through it, but
you
how easy it is, and literally it doesn't smell and all things like that. So
do you want to do one about our own lives and kind of what things we do, you know,
that's really nice.
applying our values to our own home lives?
Yeah, because you know, my house isn't as big as some of my clients' houses and things like that. So I have you know, space.
Mine certainly is.
But I have luckily enough outdoor space to put compost bin and things like that. So I think that's a nice idea. So shall we do that?
Okay. Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah. Oh, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. It's lovely talking to you, Angela.
Yeah,
Have a
you
good
too.
fortnight. Take
Okay.
care.
Bye.
Bye.